Ethan Caldwell lived alone in a small house on the edge of the Greenridge colony. The colony was peaceful, with neatly trimmed lawns, small gardens, and families walking their children along the sunlit streets. From the outside, it looked perfect, but Ethan's house was quiet. Too quiet. He was a man in his late 40s, with silver streaks in his hair and a face lined with years of service. He had spent most of his youth in the military, traveling between planets, helping in peacekeeping missions, and sometimes fighting in skirmishes at the edges of human space. Now, all that was behind him. His house was simple but well kept. Shelves lined the walls with small models of ships he had once flown, medals of honor neatly displayed in a glass cabinet, and photographs of his family framed in rows. But despite the reminders of a life once full of adventure, the house felt empty. His wife had passed 10 years ago, leaving him with only memories and his 2 daughters, Lila and Maya, who had grown into strong, independent women. Ethan spent most of his days tending his garden. The soil between his fingers reminded him of a world he could touch. Unlike the vast emptiness of space he had once traveled, he watered the flowers, trimmed the hedges, and repaired his old tech gadgets. It was quiet work, and sometimes he liked it that way. Yet, no matter how much he filled his days with routine, a sense of loneliness lingered. He missed having someone to talk to, someone who understood the stories behind his scars and medals. Most evenings, he would sit on his porch, looking at the twin moons rising in the sky, imagining the worlds he had once visited, wondering if life could surprise him again. One sunny morning, the quiet routine of his life was interrupted by a sound he hadn't expected. The familiar hum of his daughter's hover car, landing in the driveway. Ethan was just finishing watering a row of marigolds when he heard their laughter outside. "Dad!" Lila called as she jumped out of the car, her long hair catching the sunlight. "You won't believe who we brought with us." Ethan straightened, wiping his hands on his apron. "Lila, Maya, what's this surprise?" His curiosity was piqued, though a part of him worried about changes. Changes always brought complications. Maya emerged from the car, holding the hand of a tall figure wrapped in a shimmering cloak. "Dad, meet Serafina," she said with a wide smile. She wanted to learn about humans and asked to visit us. Ethan blinked. The figure stepped forward, and sunlight glinted off what looked like scales. Her skin shimmered with faint, iridescent colors, and her eyes glowed softly like molten gold. Her long hair flowed like a river of silver, and her slender frame moved with a grace that seemed almost unreal. Ethan took a cautious step back. I see," he said, his voice calm but betraying a hint of surprise. Serafina bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. "Yes, sir. I am Serafina. I come from a world far from yours. I am curious about human life and hope to learn from your family." Ethan's daughters laughed, sensing their father's initial hesitation. "Don't worry, Dad," Leela said. "She's kind and polite. She won't hurt you. We just thought, well, it's time you met someone new." Ethan glanced at Serafina, studying her carefully. Her expression was gentle, her voice soft and melodic. There was no threat in her presence, only a quiet confidence and a curious intelligence. Still, he had lived long enough to know that appearances could be deceiving. "All right," he said finally, taking a deep breath. "You can come in. But just for a visit. Don't get used to my cooking." He paused, noticing Serafina's eyes widen slightly at the small, old-fashioned stove in his kitchen. "I mean, you might find it simple." Serafina smiled. "Simple is often best, sir. I look forward to experiencing it." The first moments inside the house were quiet. Ethan felt the odd sensation of someone truly observing him, not with judgment, but with curiosity and interest. Serafina walked slowly, admiring the house, the small models of spacecraft, and the photos on the walls. "You fought many battles," she said softly, pointing at the medals in the cabinet. "These represent courage. Yes? Ethan nodded. Yes. Courage, sacrifice, and sometimes luck. Mostly luck. He chuckled lightly, feeling an unusual warmth in the dragon woman's presence. Most humans didn't ask about these things. They either ignored them or felt intimidated. I want to learn about humans, about life, about what makes you strong, Seraphina said, her eyes meeting his. You are human. You have endured much. I wish to understand. Ethan felt a strange stirring inside him. He had been alone for so long that it felt almost unnatural to share his life, his experiences, with someone who genuinely wanted to listen. Well, he said finally, I suppose I can tell you some stories. Over tea. It's a start. The afternoon passed quietly, with laughter and conversation. Seraphina listened intently as Ethan recounted tales of his military missions, not the battles themselves, but the moments of humanity, the small acts of kindness, and the choices he had made. She asked questions that made him think, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt truly understood. Later, as the sun began to dip behind the hills, the daughters suggested a walk. Ethan agreed, curious to see how Seraphina would react to the world outside his quiet home. The streets of Greenridge were calm, with neighbors waving and children playing. Seraphina's eyes sparkled with fascination. This world is small, she said softly, her voice full of wonder. Yet there is so much beauty. Ethan smiled. Small, yes, but peaceful. That counts for something. They walked together through the colony park. Seraphina paused to touch the leaves of the trees, feeling their texture, and even laughed softly at the way children ran past them. Ethan noticed how natural she looked in the environment, as if she belonged there, despite her otherworldly appearance. Dad, you like her, don't you? Maya teased quietly as they walked side by side. Ethan looked at his daughter and shook his head, a small smile forming on his lips. I like her, he admitted. She's different. Yes, but different isn't bad. Sometimes it's good. By the time they returned home, Ethan had begun to feel a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in years. The quiet house no longer seemed lonely. There was a presence, a gentle, calming energy that made him feel alive again. Seraphina helped set the table for dinner, her scales glinting softly in the evening light. The conversation flowed naturally. She asked about the plants in the garden, the books on the shelves, and even about Ethan's favorite meals. He found himself laughing at her comments, surprised by how easily she adapted to human ways. After dinner, they sat together on the porch. The twin moons rose again, casting silver light across the garden. Ethan offered her a cup of tea, and she accepted gracefully. You have a kind heart, Ethan, Seraphina said quietly. I can see it in the way you care for your daughters, for your home, for life itself. Humans, they are remarkable creatures. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Compliments had never been easy for him, especially from strangers. But there was sincerity in her voice, a recognition of something he had almost forgotten existed. I just try to do my best, he said softly. Life hasn't been easy, but you keep going. That's all anyone can do. Seraphina nodded. I wish more humans saw their strength. But you understand it. That is why I wanted to meet you. Sid, these Quam, Asna Sisna Sidid, Dom. For the first time in a long while, Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future that wasn't quiet, that wasn't lonely. Maybe, just maybe, there was room in his life for new stories, for unexpected friendships, for connections that defied his understanding of the world. The evening air grew cooler, and Seraphina stood to leave. Thank you, Ethan, she said, for sharing your home, your stories, and your kindness. I look forward to learning more. Ethan nodded, feeling a rare sense of peace. You're welcome. And, I look forward to seeing what you'll discover about humans." As she left, he watched her glide down the path with a grace that made the moonlight dance on her scales. The quiet house seemed a little warmer, the shadows a little less lonely. Maybe life had more to offer than he had thought. That night, as he sat on the porch and gazed at the stars, Ethan realized that life could surprise him. And for the first time in a long time, he was ready for that surprise. The days that followed Seraphina's arrival were unlike any Ethan had experienced in years. The quiet hum of his home was now filled with soft laughter, curious questions, and the gentle rustle of scales brushing against furniture. Seraphina had stayed, as his daughters had hoped, and her presence brought warmth that lingered long after she moved from room to room. At first, Ethan had been careful. He did not know how to act around someone so unlike any human he had ever met. Yet, he could not help but be intrigued. Seraphina had an air of calm intelligence. She asked questions that were thoughtful and sometimes surprising. "Why do humans celebrate birthdays?" she asked one morning as Ethan prepared breakfast. Her golden eyes studied him, with a mixture of curiosity and innocence. Ethan chuckled, flipping an egg. "It's tradition. A way to mark another year of life, to celebrate the people we care about. It's simple, really, but meaningful." Seraphina nodded slowly. "I like simplicity. It allows focus on what truly matters." As the days passed, she began to learn the small routines of human life. She helped with household chores, learning how to wash dishes without breaking them with her delicate yet strong claws. She even learned to cook simple meals with Ethan, her long fingers surprisingly adept at handling utensils. Ethan found himself smiling more often, enjoying her presence even in the mundane tasks of daily life. The daughters watched from a distance with quiet satisfaction. "She's amazing," Lila whispered one afternoon. "Dad hasn't smiled like this in years." Maya nodded. "He's opening up. I think he's happy again." One sunny afternoon, Ethan decided to show Seraphina his garden. She had already spent time observing it from the porch, but now he wanted her to see it fully. The garden was modest but well tended, with neat rows of vegetables, colorful flowers, and a small pond in the corner. "You take care of this with your own hands?" Seraphina asked, marveling at the plants. She knelt to examine a rose bush, gently brushing her fingers over the petals. "The care, it is visible in every leaf, every flower. Humans are patient creatures." Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "Patience is important. You can't rush growth. Life works at its own pace, whether you like it or not." Seraphina nodded, looking around the garden with a thoughtful expression. "This patience, it is something we dragons admire. On my world, growth is measured in centuries, not days. Yet humans have strength in their fleeting years. It is remarkable." They worked together in the garden that afternoon. Seraphina used her abilities gently, guiding water to thirsty plants, her scales glinting in the sunlight. Ethan found her presence comforting, as if the garden had always been waiting for her touch. He spoke of his military days, not in terms of battles won or lost, but in the small moments that had defined him, the camaraderie, the friendships, and the difficult choices he had made. Seraphina listened intently, her golden eyes reflecting understanding. "You carry memories with honor," she said softly. "That is a strength many humans forget. You remember, and that makes you powerful." Ethan felt a rare warmth in his chest. To be seen, truly seen, by someone who was not human, was both strange and comforting. "Maybe," he said, "but it also makes life heavier at times. Memories are a burden too. CS are makes wa." Seraphina tilted her head thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but burdens can be shared. You have shared yours with me today. That lightens the weight, does it not?" Ethan nodded slowly, surprised at how true it felt. Sharing had always been difficult for him, but with Seraphina, it felt natural. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Seraphina adapted to human habits, learning humor, observing social customs, and even attempting to mimic the way humans danced at small gatherings. Ethan laughed the first time she tried, her movements elegant but slightly awkward. "You're trying too hard," he said, chuckling. "Just move with the music. Don't overthink it." She laughed too, a sound like wind chimes in the sunlight. "I will try, Ethan. I wish to understand joy in human ways." Evenings were spent sharing stories and tea. Ethan told tales of the planets he had visited, the strange creatures he had met, and the challenges of life in the vastness of space. Seraphina, in turn, told him about her world, a place of floating mountains, crystal rivers, and civilizations that spanned thousands of years. Ethan listened with rapt attention, fascinated by the differences and similarities between humans and dragons. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise, Seraphina asked a question that made Ethan pause. "Why do humans fear what they do not understand?" Ethan sighed, thinking of the prejudices he had encountered throughout his life. Fear comes naturally. Humans fear danger, the unknown, change. And sometimes, they just fear what they cannot control. But fear can be overcome with understanding, kindness, and patience. Seraphina nodded, looking at him with quiet admiration. "You are wise. That is why I wish to meet you. Humans have strength, but you also have hearts. That combination, it is rare." The bond between Ethan and Seraphina became visible to the neighbors as well. Children were drawn to her, fascinated by her shimmering scales and gentle voice. Adults, at first wary, began to see her kindness and intelligence. She helped organize small events, assisted with gardening projects, and even taught children about dragon culture in ways that were simple and engaging. One afternoon, a neighbor, Mr. Harlan, approached Ethan with concern. "I hope you don't mind me asking, Ethan," he began cautiously, "but having a dragon in the neighborhood, some of us worry. It's unusual." Ethan looked at Seraphina, who stood quietly beside him, her gaze calm but aware. He smiled, gently. "Seraphina is not a threat. She is kind, curious, and respectful. We are learning from each other. Sometimes, the unusual can be wonderful, if we give it a chance." Mr. Harlan blinked, clearly surprised by Ethan's calm confidence. "Well, if you say so, I suppose time will tell." Seraphina spoke softly, her voice carrying sincerity. "I mean no harm. I only wish to understand humans and share knowledge. If I do this with respect, perhaps fear will fade." Ethan nodded, proud of her words. "That's the right approach. Respect and patience go a long way." Days turned into weeks. Ethan found himself looking forward to each morning, to the small interactions that made his days brighter. Seraphina had a way of noticing things he had long ignored, the way the sunlight fell on the garden in the morning, the smell of rain on the soil, the quiet strength in a human smile. One afternoon, they worked together on a small project, fixing an old water fountain in the garden. Ethan had tried for weeks without success, but with Seraphina's help, the fountain sprang to life, water sparkling in the sunlight. He laughed, feeling the thrill of accomplishment alongside her. "You are stronger than you think," Seraphina said, her eyes reflecting the dancing water, "not just in body, but in spirit. Humans endure much, and yet continue to grow. That is remarkable." Ethan shook his head, smiling. "I just do what I can, but it's nice to have someone to share it with." Seraphina nodded, understanding perfectly. And that is how bonds are formed. Sharing makes life brighter. Even the evenings became moments of quiet joy. Ethan would sit on the porch, Seraphina beside him, the stars above, and the soft sounds of the colony around them. They spoke of dreams, hopes, and the strange twists of life that brought them together. For Ethan, it was a revelation he had almost forgotten, that life could be so full, even after years of solitude. The daughters were delighted. They watched as their father smiled more, laughed more, and even began to tell small jokes again. The house, once quiet and still, was now alive with warmth and connection. One night, as they sat together under the twin moons, Serafina asked a question that surprised Ethan. Do humans believe in fate? Ethan thought for a moment. Some do. Some don't. I think maybe fate is just the paths we take, the choices we make, and the people we let into our lives. Meeting you, that feels like a choice. I'm glad I didn't avoid. Serafina's eyes shone softly. And I am glad as well. Humans have hearts that inspire. I wish to learn more not just from stories, but from life itself, from people like you. Ethan smiled, feeling a strange but wonderful sense of possibility. For the first time in years, he felt that life could hold surprises, that connections could form in the most unexpected ways, and that happiness was not a thing of the past. As part 2 of their journey ended, Ethan, Serafina, and the daughters had begun to form a new kind of family. One built on respect, curiosity, and kindness. A family that proved that differences, whether human or dragon, were not barriers, but bridges. And in the quiet moments, when the stars shone above and the garden glimmered in moonlight, Ethan knew that life, once lonely, was beginning to feel full again. The weeks turned into months, and Greenridge Colony had slowly begun to change. The quiet suburban streets, once predictable and routine, now carried the soft, shimmering presence of Serafina. Children waved when she passed. Adults smiled cautiously at first, then with growing admiration as they saw her kindness in action. Ethan watched this change with quiet pride. His home, once a place of loneliness, had become a hub of gentle warmth. He spent mornings in the garden, sometimes with Serafina, sometimes with his daughters, laughing and working together. His routine no longer felt dull. It felt alive. Serafina had adapted to human life with surprising ease. She learned to cook small meals, help with chores, and even participate in the colony's weekly gatherings. Yet, she never lost the elegance and grace of her dragon heritage. Her shimmering scales glinted in sunlight, and her voice, soft and melodic, carried wisdom that intrigued all who spoke with her. One afternoon, as Ethan worked on repairing a small robotic device in the garage, Serafina approached, carrying a basket of fresh herbs from the garden. "Ethan," she said gently, "the festival committee is meeting today. I would like to attend. They have invited me." Ethan wiped his hands on his apron and looked at her. The colony's annual cultural festival was a cherished event. It celebrated human traditions, music, and creativity. The committee's invitation was a sign that Serafina's presence was being accepted. "I think that's a good idea," he said. "It's time people saw the true side of you." At the festival, Serafina moved gracefully among the crowd. Children were fascinated by her scales, and she smiled warmly, allowing them to touch her hands carefully. She spoke to adults with humility and intelligence, sharing knowledge about her world and asking thoughtful questions about theirs. Ethan observed quietly, proud of the way she carried herself and represented both her world and his family. A small problem arose when the festival organizers realized that the old decorations and displays had been damaged by a recent storm. The event risked being canceled. Serafina stepped forward gently. "I can help," she said. "Not to replace your traditions, but to enhance them." The organizers hesitated, unsure at first, but Ethan's calm reassurance encouraged them. "She means no harm. She wants to help. Trust her." With her guidance, the festival took on new life. Serafina used her dragon abilities to carefully rearrange the damaged displays, fix lights with precise gestures, and create sparkling decorations that glimmered like starlight. The crowd watched in awe as a fusion of human creativity and dragon magic transformed the festival into something unforgettable. Children laughed as holographic lights danced across the stage, and music echoed through the streets. Adults marveled at the beauty, realizing that Serafina's contribution had made the festival brighter and more memorable. Ethan, standing at the edge of the crowd, felt a swell of pride and happiness. After the festival, neighbors approached him with smiles and thanks. "Ethan, Mr." Harlan said, his usual caution softened by admiration. "I was wrong. She's extraordinary. Thank you for trusting her." Ethan nodded, smiling. "Sometimes, you have to see beyond what's unusual to understand the beauty of it. Serafina is kind, thoughtful, and respectful. That's what matters." Serafina, standing beside him, bowed slightly. "I am grateful for your trust. Humans are remarkable in their openness and patience. I have learned much." Back at home, the sense of harmony continued. The daughters watched as their father and Serafina shared quiet moments together, watering the garden, repairing gadgets, or simply sitting on the porch watching the twin moons rise. The laughter that had been absent for so many years now filled the house. One evening, as they sat around the dining table sharing a simple meal, Serafina asked, "Ethan, do you feel fulfilled?" Ethan thought for a moment, looking at his daughters, and then at Serafina. "I do," he said finally. "I have lived a long life, faced many challenges, and seen much. But I didn't realize how much I was missing, until now. You, and this family, have brought something I thought I had lost forever. Joy, companionship, and hope." Serafina's eyes shone softly. "That is the gift I wish to find here. I hope to learn about humans, but in truth, I have learned about life itself, from your kindness, your courage, and your heart." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth that went deeper than simple happiness. "And I have learned that life can surprise you. That connection can come in forms you never imagined. And that kindness transcends species. You've shown me that, Serafina." The daughters watched silently, their hearts full. They had hoped their father would find happiness again. But seeing it blossom before their eyes exceeded their expectations. As the weeks passed, the community's acceptance of Serafina grew. She participated in small projects, helped children with their studies, and even shared tales of dragon worlds that fascinated everyone. The colony had learned that humans and dragons could coexist in harmony, each learning from the other. One day, while Ethan and Serafina were walking through the garden, a small child ran up to them. "Serafina, look what I made," the child exclaimed, holding a small paper dragon. Serafina knelt, smiling. "It is beautiful. You are talented. Perhaps you will teach me to make one next time." "Ah." The child giggled, nodding eagerly. Ethan watched, a smile on his face. Life, once quiet and lonely, was now vibrant and full of unexpected joy. Later, Ethan and Serafina sat on the porch, watching the sun set. "You know," Ethan said, "I never thought I'd meet someone like you. Someone who could make life feel full again." Serafina turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. "Nor did I expect to find someone who would share life so openly. You have patience, understanding, and a kind heart. That is rare, even among humans." Ethan laughed softly. "I guess we found each other at the right time." Serafina nodded. "Yes, and in doing so, we have shown that differences do not separate us. They enrich us." The twins, Lila and Maya, joined them with cups of tea. The four of them sat together in comfortable silence, sharing warmth and companionship. The house, once a place of solitude, now pulsed with life and love. The neighborhood had changed too. Adults who had been wary now approached Seraphina with curiosity and respect. Children adored her. And Ethan realized that the bridge between human and dragon was not just possible, it was beautiful. One quiet evening, as they sat beneath the twin moons, Ethan reflected on how much his life had changed in a short time. He had gone from a lonely veteran, isolated by memories and routine, to a man surrounded by laughter, warmth, and unexpected friendship. He had learned that life's surprises could be wonderful if you opened your heart. Seraphina, sensing his thoughts, spoke softly. "Ethan, your life is full now, not because of me alone, but because you allowed connection. Humans have a rare strength in that. You endure, you hope, and you love." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. I never realized it could be this way. Thank you for helping me see it." Seraphina smiled, resting a gentle hand on his. "Thank you for welcoming me into your life. Together, we have discovered something extraordinary." The twin moons shone down, silver light bathing the garden. For the first time in many years, Ethan felt that the future was bright. The house, once a quiet refuge, was now a home filled with love, laughter, and acceptance. Even in the simplest moments, watering the garden, sharing tea, or watching the stars, Ethan understood that happiness was not something to chase far away. It could arrive quietly, unexpectedly, in the form of friendship, connection, and the courage to open one's heart. In the following weeks, the family continued to grow closer. Seraphina helped with home repairs, taught Ethan new ways to garden, and introduced ideas from her world that made daily life both exciting and meaningful. Ethan, in turn, shared his stories, taught her human games, and guided her in understanding earthly customs. The daughters often observed the bond forming between their father and Seraphina, their hearts full of joy. Lila whispered to Maya one evening, "Dad looks happy, truly happy. We did the right thing." Maya nodded. "Yes, this is more than I hoped for." One day, the colony council approached Ethan. "We would like Seraphina to participate in our official cultural exchange programs," they said. "She has shown remarkable understanding, kindness, and respect. We want to acknowledge that publicly." Ethan smiled, glancing at Seraphina. "I think that is a wonderful idea. You've earned it." Seraphina's eyes shone with gratitude. "I am honored. Thank you for believing in me, Ethan, and for allowing me to be part of your world." As the seasons passed, Ethan's life remained full. The home was alive with laughter, warmth, and friendship. The quiet loneliness of the past had been replaced with vibrant connections, both human and dragon. The story of a lonely veteran, once lost in memories and solitude, had become the story of a man who embraced the unexpected, welcomed the extraordinary, and discovered that life's beauty often comes from the people and dragons you allow into your heart. And so, under the twin moons of Green Ridge Colony, Ethan, his daughters, and Seraphina continued their days laughing, learning, and living together. The house was no longer quiet, and Ethan's heart was no longer empty. Humanity's courage, kindness, and openness had triumphed in the most unexpected way, proving that even in the vastness of the universe, connection could bring light, joy, and lasting happiness.